And as I talk about this, I want to allow you to start asking questions. I want to encourage you to raise your hand or go into the chat, be able to talk to us. We are taking questions now. I don't want to take much time. I want to make sure that we are using the time given to us by Flora and Madeleine in a good way. And using that in a good way is to have a conversation. We want this to be a conversation that benefits you, particularly you who is listening to us. And don't say you are asking on behalf of your friend. No, ask for yourself because you have made time to be here. Madeleine has talked about, yes, we are looking at questions, and please help me be able to track questions. We have something in the chat, and we will go into the questions already. We have a question from Joseph Mungai. I don't know if it's a question. Let's just look at that. Glad to hear that others, individuals and organizations in the past experienced career transitions, and that Career Connection created a career transition program to help them navigate. My take out the last freedom quote from Viktor Frankl. Yes. We have Doreen Kawira says, hello everybody, sorry I joined in late. Is it possible to have the recording? Yes, Doreen, we'll talk to Dr. Wadanga, see if there's a recording, but we want to encourage you to have a conversation with us in the next webinars. It's more productive to have the conversation than listening to the recording alone. Is there a question about how to register? Yeah? Yes, please go ahead and respond to that.
Well, I'm just admiring the name. Is it really that somebody's called Admire? Or is that really? That's just beautiful. Okay. So Admire, we're all just sat here smiling at your beautiful name. So how could you enroll in the program? What you can do is just email info at Career Connections. I think maybe I can just try and find the slide again. Let's try and do that. Here we go. Oh, and let me just try and project the slide I need to. Sorry, it's a bit clunky, but there you go. So the info at careerconnectionsltd.com, just go ahead and email that, and we will be responding to your inquiries as soon as possible. We actually have somebody on standby to work on this program. And if nothing else, you'll have a really amazing talk with one of our staff from the Leadership Coaching and Change Unit. So there you go, info at careerconnectionsltd.com. Take a screenshot of that if you wish, and feel free to inquire. I'll stop sharing now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Madeleine. And please do that now. Great steps start now, not tomorrow. A small stride today. I'm just speaking what Flora says. Start now. Just start. Fail, start messy, but just start. You might have salt and end up with tea leaves. I mean, these are things that are on the table every day. And what Career Connections is doing is that you have invested. There's something she said, Madeleine said, you have invested. And there should be some return on investment, right? You have gone to school. You have taken degrees, some of you with PhDs. And I mean, some of you have a wide wealth of experience. That is an investment. Is there a return on the investment? That is a good reflection for you to make. Any question? There is Henry. Yeah, there is Henry. It's moving very fast. I want to see what Henry is saying. Henry says, I'm going to just read. As a recruiter, how do you respond when you realize a candidate used an AI tool to rework their CV to adapt to the position they're applying for? Please, Madeleine.
I love it. Actually, AI capabilities is something that recruiters are now looking for. So it's a bit ironic, isn't it? Look, I think this is a fact. We actually see people using AI a lot. It writes well. It writes even in your style if you allow it to learn what that is. I think the more important thing is, have you spoken directly to the needs of the recruiter for the position that they are recruiting? That's what they're more important, they're more interested in. Has your cover letter, and by the way, cover letters are important. 27% of recruiting managers take great time to analyze your cover letter. Has it spoken about specific experience and skills relevant to the position you're applying for? Have you managed to connect your own values to the values of the organization you're applying to? So it's not a one-size-fits-all, get AI to write an application letter and a CV. That's not going to work. You have to do some research before each and every application. But would we reject it? We probably wouldn't even know. We certainly do know now if people try to use AI in assessments, because there is back-end technology picking that up. So a lot of the assessments that we use for recruiting for our major clients does actually have what we call a faking scale. So be careful with that and be honest as you do your assessments.
Thank you so much, Madeleine. And as you asked that question, I looked at what we review as HR. Being a HR, I'll just tell you something that Madeleine is saying, is that you are using AI to have your cover letter. She's looking for round, nice apples, and she ends up with round, nice tomatoes. Because you have used AI to package yourself. You are round, yes, you're looking good. You might look like an apple, but you're actually inside a tomato. So when you come to the interview, they're like, is this CV, is this cover? Really, are we talking to the same person? So please be careful. We have another question, and this is from Elizabeth Mwiruri. Elizabeth says, very timely conversation. What caught my attention is that this is not a reset. It is a shift in the mindset. Perhaps, Madeleine, can you lean in on that for a minute, please?
I'm sure Flora has also faced these moments in her career and in her business where you actually survive because of your can-do attitude. We've faced these crises before in many sectors, impacted greatly, for instance, by COVID, by post-election violence. We as Career Connections are right next door to a mall, rather infamously known in Nairobi, the Westgate Mall. We were impacted by that attack as well. What you have left to you in those moments, you have to reflect on what are you in control of. And so what are you in control of? And one of the things you're in control of is your attitude. It's about getting out of bed and saying, today's going to be better. What small 1 degree shift in direction can I make? Because you shift degree 1%, you'll end up in a completely different destination, by the way. So what 1 degree can I take? And I'm sure many of you are people of faith, but this is also a year since we've had an interesting year already with our global socio-economic shifts. And I've been telling people this is the year to go back and read the Serenity Prayer, because it talks about what can you control.
Thank you so much. The Serenity Prayer, and I know some of you, when you have finished on your CV making an application, Madeleine has said of people of faith, you pray and fast, and like this one has to go through. But it is the content. I mean, it's the content. And there is something Irene Gadinji is asking. She is saying, in terms of careers, perhaps Madeleine can comment on pivoting from development sector to other sectors. She mentioned something about lengthy CVs. What else do we have to consider? I've been thinking deep about, say, organizational cultures. Madeleine, today you're on spot. Told you working with Career Connections. People are looking at career. Let's wait until we get to manufacturing then. Please.
We're talking about the CVs here, are we? So like I said, I did my master's thinking I was going to join the development sector, and I didn't actually achieve that. And so Flora mentioned fail fast. earlier in her career. And so I realized, okay, that's not working. I must have sent applications to everywhere that I could think of. And so I'm not going to sit at home with my parents. That's not going to work. I need rent for a tiny little apartment. So that's where necessity comes in. I think that's just to let you know that quite quickly I shifted towards psychometric assessments and introducing those. Lengthy CVs. We don't need to know every single conference you've been to, okay? We just don't. And there are plenty of great examples online now of what a resume should look like, and what a CV should be structured like. Please pay attention to detail, even on LinkedIn. Your first few words, the title you give yourself on your LinkedIn is an eye catcher or not. So just consider what key words are people looking for. And I mentioned many of them earlier. Project management, quality, data analyst, planning, resource management, leadership with inspiration and influence, all of that. So you will have to cut your CV down. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madeleine. And that is a packed statement. And I think for the CVs, you have something different presented, and on LinkedIn is different. You can't be having split personality or split professional presentation. Could you make sure it aligns? And it's actually what they see is what you have provided. I want us to change gear a bit and get to what Boniface has asked. Boniface is saying change of language. That's his take home. But when we talk about changing language from the NGO sector, from USAID sector, from development sector, and now we want to get into the corporate, into the manufacturing. Flora, what kind of language should we speak now? Because we are used to very straightforward Western language. How do we speak Melvin's language now?
I think it's really just speaking to who is your audience. So you've come from the development space, like Madeleine says, they have a lot of development spiel. Whereas us guys, it's really like this is input and this is output. So they need to just marry where where they are sending their CVs, and like she said, show what you've been able to do, or show what you're going to be able to do. So I'm sure some of them would be looking at a space of, the lady who talks about organizational development, driving culture. There's a lot that happens in the development world that really happens in our organizations, but we don't speak that language. So it's really coming to understand plain English, simple English, and maybe focusing more on the outcome. And like I said earlier, what problem do we have? So don't come and tell me I'm going to give you I'm going to give you organizational solutions, culture or something like that. Maybe come and have a conversation and find out and say, I've worked in, X, Y, and Z, and have a conversation and see what kind of problems they have. Again, researching a lot. If you sit down, they say an ideal number is something like 10, is it 5, 15? Sit down with those kind of people and just listen. What kind of problems are there in the workspace? And then try and fit yourself within that kind of language. What are they suffering from, and what can it's repurposing, really, repurposing yourself, because we all went to the same schools, kinda. We all sort of, I think we can deliver something in many different ways. They say there are many ways to skin a cat. So I'm sure they have a lot. The people out there have a lot that they could also give us in corporate and in manufacturing. I think it's just how they position it.
Thank you so much, Flora. And Patrick, we really appreciate you've said you're joining us from Mombasa, a great conversation. Henry Njagi is asking on how long should a cover letter be? And yes, maybe in a statement, Madeleine, help us respond to that.
Yes, thank you. So remember, recruiters are busy people, and they'll be going through a lot of different applications. So what you want your cover letter to be is a couple of paragraphs long. It needs to fit on one printed page. It needs to really, in the first paragraph, explain why you think you're relevant for this organization. So what is it that you're offering the organization? And the second paragraph is really the catch in the story of, how come this matches with your values in particular. You can even be quite vulnerable. I've known someone who was wanting to get into cancer research, for instance, wrote to Cancer Research in the UK and shared that this is so meaningful for her because she lost her father due to cancer. So make it memorable, personable, and of course extremely relevant to what you're trying to get into.
And not font size 9.
And not font size 9, Flora says, if it's one page. Yes, we're old. We need these big... No. Font size 10 or 12? No, 12 is good.
Thank you for that. Because when you talk about 2 pages or 1 page, someone makes it 8, font 8, no italic, so that everything I want to say is actually fitting in these 2 pages, and that becomes really difficult to read, and it can easily be overlooked because, as you hear, the recruiters or the people, your audience, do not want to struggle to know what you're saying. It has to come out easily. Thank you so much. We have a question, and somebody says they are truly encouraged by your journey, Flora. And that is Grace Nyongesa. I know it is possible to start, I know it's possible to start as an entrepreneurship journey. So many times in somebody's mind, it starts. We start businesses in our minds, big, we build castles. But then her question is, my question would be, how do you trust yourself enough to start and move?
Wow. I think it's to give yourself the grace to fail. One of the reasons that keep us procrastinated is because you can't deal, you don't want to, but to actually say, you know what, I'll give myself this period, I will begin, and it's okay if I don't get it right. Of course, because we're all educated and I know they've all been successful in their careers, they're not going to fail. They're going to make sure they speak to Madeline. They're going to make sure they Google, they research, they do their work and bring their best foot forward. But I do believe it's analysis paralysis, always looking for perfectionism. And perfectionism is actually a fear. It's a fear of actually failing. So give yourself the grace and say, I'm going to give myself this window. I think the next thing that I tend to find is when people want to start a business, they think, ooh, I love the boardroom. I love the table. I love the seats. And you go and start buying those kind of things. I always say, begin with the customer first. Completely begin with the customer first. So if you're going to make free-flowing salt, they actually call it, have a minimum viable proposition. So let's take service industry. I decide I'm going to train people on mindset shift. Go to who you think your ideal customer is and speak to them and interview them and then find out what do they need to know and then come back and package and immediately go and try and sell it off to somebody else. Even before you buy your table, your chair, it could even be before you have your logo. But I tend to find people spend so much time crossing the T's and dotting the I's, and they forget to go and do the sale because the most important thing is the sale. When I decided to shift to, of course, I'd done my training in coaching and mentoring and coaching. When I decided last year to sort of add that to my hat, I sort of came up with an idea and then I validated it. So I went to 10 people on LinkedIn and I want to thank them. And I just said, I think I have a program that you'd be interested in. And we negotiated and they said, yes, no, think about this, think about that. So by the time I was coming out with my 8-week program, I was talking to X, Y, and Z. I knew exactly who wants my program. I knew exactly why, and I knew exactly what I was offering. So that's the advice that I would give. If you want to start something with a minimum viable, if you want to make something up, they say stitch it even with staples, take it to market, listen, come back until you get, and continue to perfect it as you move along.
Yeah, if I could add to that, because it's so, firstly, she's talking about my board table, my 18-seater board table. But let me tell you something, and maybe this will bring it home. When I started my business, it was in the small back spare bedroom. So it was psychometric tests. I was just assessing one person until companies started to hear about it and wanted me to assess groups. And this table, we actually bought this table before we had space for it, because I thought this is now like a vision board. And I kept it in storage, and I said, one day I'm going to have an office big enough for this big table. And actually, it was Flora's brother who then came and designed our offices. So that's how small this world is. And he kept saying, you don't need such a big table. And I said, watch this space. And now, of course, this room, this board table is way too small to fit the organization around it, because we're on 35 people and it can only sit 18. So dream big, but start small. Yeah, one person at a time.
Beautiful. Dream big and start what? Small. You know, we are used to huge boardrooms. You're used to big vehicles, going to the field. You need to start thinking, having your own vision board, looking at where do you want to go, what do you want to achieve, and preparing to go there. Having the table before the boardroom, I think that is quite bold. Like, God, now I have the table, where is the boardroom? And there it is, yeah? So there's something that Eva had talked about. Eva Kiragu, I think, she says, we'll definitely be looking for tips of on morphing from the development jargons. And then someone also says, Mercy Kanja says, change of language, e.g. project goals to KIPs, proposal development to business development, grant reports, financial reports, sustainability. I mean, all those words. Shifting from that, and now just talking about different flavors of Melvin, different assessments, it's going to take you time. But there's something that Flora said. You need to sit with around 5 to 10 people in that area. Listen to them and let them help you to understand your shift. Let's read something from Doreen Kawira. Says, I have since started a small business since the transition, but I'm just wondering how to manage stock and paying bills. The money seems not to be enough. Okay, now, the need seems to be more. It gets frustrating. Flora, please, any input? She says, she has since, Doreen, have since started smaller business since the transition, meaning that she's already out there. But she's just wondering how to manage the stock, the bills. The money seems not enough. The need seems to be more. It gets frustrating. And the cry is just for Flora to have input.
Assume I'm selling a couple of books and I know people will order 10. I have to have 10 if they're going to pay on the spot. I'll have to have 20 if they're going to pay on credit, and depends on how long. So it's really about doing your math and making sure that you have enough money. We are running in an economy where people are really delaying payments. So if you can go towards a cash business, I don't know what your business is serving, it would be great, because then that way then you don't need that much working capital. If we do need working capital, there's the banks, there's M-Pesa, there's Fuliza, there's a couple of places. Keep it cheap, but I always tell people the best and the cheapest money is the one your customers are willing to pay for.
Absolutely. And again, that's such sage advice, because the banks actually can be quite difficult, and they can build up if you're not careful.
Yes. And I think as you listen to this, you understand starting an enterprise is not easy. Starting a business or an organization is not easy. So you will fail once, twice, but you'll make it. I saw what Flora showed us on her PowerPoint, the levels, the changes, the adjustments, the accommodations she made to her clients. And that is what Madeleine says. Look at what your clients are willing to pay for. I mean, if you can have a beautiful product that cannot be afforded, or it has no demand. Look at what your clients would like to pay for. And I just want to get to what Rachel Moniki says. It might be our last question. We are catching up on time. Rachel Moniki says, my question is to Flora. Flora, today, you are leaving many entrepreneurs in this room. I mean, it is quite refreshing to see the success you have achieved in the tea industry. I'm also in the tea industry. As one who is looking to scale into tea business now, can you provide advice when it came to setting up a value-add tea business? She talks of CTC and orthodox. I mean, I need a whole lecture for that, but I know you understand that. My hurdle is registration and raising capital. That is for you, Flora.
Well, I would want to ask her to first identify where is the market. Who do you want to serve? Once you know who you want to serve, you will know whether you're going to go into CTC or you're going to go to Orthodox. Orthodox is the one you roll. Tends to be more expensive, not very popular in Kenya. But if you have an upmarket, somebody with that kind of palette, great. If it is export, more or less the same. Raising capital, like we said, typical places is, usually the banks and, financial institution, micro institutions tend to make it more expensive. But again, if you could get your customers to pay you up front, for example, if it's export, that is somewhere else to do it. There's a lot of business management training going on right now, mostly banks, financial institutions. Everybody has some training going on for women, for youth. So I'd want to encourage her to look for places like that where you can learn how to basically manage your business and begin. But I would encourage you, begin. I'm quite encouraged that you do want to do that. But there's something I want to touch on now that you've said it's almost the last. And that's about failure. One of the reasons we fear failure so much is because we wear it. You shouldn't wear failure. If I fail developing this product, I failed developing this product. Flora has not failed as a person, because I've done X, Y, and Z. And I always tell people, bank on what you've succeeded in. So when you're trying something new, you will fail, if it's real, especially if it's innovative. And it is good to fail, because there's no better teacher than that. So you don't make it expensive, and that's why I was saying stitch it up, try it small, begin until you can come out with a wonderful, product, a wonderful course. And even if you're doing courses, just do cohort 1, cohort 2, and just keep continuing growing it. Stop wearing failure on your skin. Don't own it. Reject it and say, this failed, not Flora failed.
Wow. I can't add anything on that. Wearing failure. You have this outfit that looks like failure, and you're feeling like a failure. You are branded a failure, and you cannot try anything else. I mean, if you have tried something that has not worked, you've learned from it, right? And there's something that I think Madeline said, perfection is fear. And perfection is fear, because you want to do it right and you want to do it now, and I don't want to go wrong. Please go wrong. You are allowed. Go wrong. Do it wrong. Get messy until you get it right.
Rejection is redirection.
Yes, rejection is redirection. And I just want us to wrap up the conversation, giving each one of you, Flora and Madeline, a minute just to have your final words. What would you want to tell the audience? I know there are quite a number. They are listening to you. What will be your parting shot in a minute? And then we can come to Flora. Each one of you will have a word for us. Thank you.
You go first.
Oh, okay. I want to build actually on what we're talking about, that fear of that first step. And as I said, for me, it was just I needed to move out of my parents' house. So, and I needed to earn some money. It was tiny money for the first few years. You're going to spend the first few years building your business, educating your clients, especially in what I was doing is a little bit more complicated than salt. But I see also a question around the pros and cons of just getting started on your own side business. If you're in a job, yes, please do that. Please, I think we should all have a plan B. The cons of it, you're doing that without so much risk because you still have an income. That's the pros. The cons of it, obviously, is that you've got to make sure it doesn't cannibalize any of your actual employment time, because that's an ethical consideration. For me, I want to end with some advice I got from another great entrepreneur, the founder of M Copper, actually, one of our clients a few years ago. And he said to me, he'd waited a while for my team to send a proposal. And he said, you should always go with imperfect action rather than perfect inaction. And that has really stayed with me, and it's something I keep telling my team. We're going to go with imperfect action, just start, just get it done, learn as you go, rather than sit there with perfect inaction. So thank you.
And Madeline, if I could pick up on that, I think for me is to just encourage everybody to lead is to learn. And yes, you've been in the development space, and yes, you've been, you're probably a star achiever, you're in a new space. So learn from those before you, do the coaching, do the bold, do what you have to do to get it done. Have a mentor, have somebody who has gone before you, always, sound check, so that you can go faster and faster forward. Because I keep saying there's no point, and that's one of the reasons why I started my program, and I'm sure that's why Career Connections did theirs, is there's no point reinventing the wheel. If you could actually, lean on the shoulders of those who have gone before you and go much further. For me, I want to see the African continent have large businesses, in a much shorter time than I have. Nobody needs to take the 29 years that I did. If you could do it in 10, I'd be happy. So I think it's invest in yourself, take the time. It could look expensive, but it's more expensive to try and figure it out in the long run. So thank you very much and good luck, and give it a shot. It's not that bad.
Thank you so much for everybody. Thank you for listening in. Would have loved to have more time. I know we still have many questions, but this is just one of the webinars that we are going to run. One of the 4. And therefore, I want you to make sure that you register for all the webinars.